Hello, everyone. Jose and Nick here, coming back to you from Moneyline MMA. We have another week of exciting fights. We have Curtis Blaydes versus Tom Aspinall. This fight's taking place on Saturday, July 23rd at 10 a.m. Central District Time in the O2 Arena in London, England. And to kick off the card, the first fight of the night is going to be a light heavyweight bout between Paul Craig versus Volkan Oezdemir. And for the second fight of the night, we're going to have a flyweight bout, a women's flyweight bout between Molly McCann versus Hannah Goldy. And for the third fight of the night, we're going to have a light heavyweight bout between Nikita Krylov versus Alexander Gustafsson. And for the fourth fight of the night, we're going to have the exciting Paddy Pimblett versus Jordan Leavitt. And our co-main event is Jack Hermansson versus late-minute replacement Chris Curtis at a middleweight bout. And for the main event, we have a heavyweight bout between Curtis Blaydes versus the local Tom Aspinall. Let's go. And for our first fight of the night, we have a light heavyweight bout between Paul Craig versus Volkan Oezdemir. Right now, Paul Craig is the betting underdog at plus 124, while Volkan Oezdemir is the betting favorite at minus 160. Right now, it's kind of interesting to see, Nick, that Paul Craig is actually the betting underdog in this case, counting that he's coming off for a 4-fight win streak, and before that, he had a draw to Shogun Rua, and then but before that, he also had a win. And even though his fights, his last couple of fights, kind of seemed like things were going south for him. Like, for example, his last fight against Nikita Krylov, him getting that first round submission triangle was crazy. I think it shows Paul Craig showed that he has a lot and that he belongs in the UFC. So, and while Volkan Oezdemir is coming off a 2-fight losing streak right now, and he got actually knocked out pretty bad by Yuri Pajaka. So it's kind of interesting to see that he's the one opening up as the betting favorite for this one, Nick.
Yeah, without a doubt, Jose. I'm very fascinated. Paul Craig's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. All but 2 of his fights have gone to an early finish. This guy is a finishing master. And sure, there have been a couple times where he's been finished by Alonzo Menafield, Jimmy Carute. But those days have gone past. Those are 3 years ago now. It's been since he's been submitted or knocked out. And I think Paul Craig is on a vicious streak here, and I think he's going to continue it, Jose. He's not technically on home field, but honestly, I just think he's an animal. He has the ability to strike. He has the ability to take guys down. And with 2 submission attempts at average, I mean, that's insane. He's going for people's necks. He's going for people's arms all over the place. And I do understand that Volkan Oezdemir is no joke. He has 80% takedown defense, and that's incredible. But when you go and look back at his history and when he fought guys like Daniel Cormier, they were still able to take him down. When he's fighting guys that know what they're doing, I think Daniel Cormier ended up being, 2 for 3 on his takedown attempts. So when he's fighting a guy that really knows his takedown game, he has a 66% chance against Volkan Oezdemir. So I think Paul Craig is that guy. I think he has the ability to take Volkan down and just suffocate him on the ground if he wants to.
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you on that. I mean, the guy does have a 100% finish rate. I mean, 13 of his wins, Paul Craig, that is via submission. Volkan Oezdemir, though, he does have great stand-up as well. And I could see him, putting Paul Craig out. But Paul Craig being the underdog, I see a lot of value in that. I mean, this guy is a finisher. He finds ways to get the job done. And yeah, you're right. I do think he can kind of probably control Volkan Oezdemir in this one. I mean, if Volkan Oezdemir does not knock him out, I do see Paul Craig getting the win. If it goes to the decision, I see Volkan Oezdemir winning this one too. Even that fight against Yuri Prochazka when he got knocked out, there was times where he was kind of showing some holes in Yuri's game, and he was kind of outclassing him in the striking game up until, again, Yuri just went crazy and knocked him out. But he has shown that he's still a top 10 UFC fighter. And Paul Craig, him getting this win, I think really shows where he belongs in the top 10 as well. He was a guy that, some saw like his way was going to be out the door, but he just kept getting these win after wins after wins. And I mean, he's coming in as the underdog right now. So I feel like maybe that's like a chip on his shoulder, like maybe every time he's coming in as these underdogs, he's, he proves otherwise, like, why he shouldn't. And I think for this fight, I was kind of coming in as for Volkan Oezdemir, even though he was having those two fight losses. But you have to look more into Paul Craig, and seeing that he's the underdog, I think that's just really hard to miss. So for this one, I'm going to go with Paul Craig.
All right, yeah, sounds like we're going to agree in this case. Jose Anais might be the underdog of the week. Honestly, I think I'm very confident in Paul Craig, and he's for sure going to show up in some parlays for me this week. Next, we have a women's flyweight bout. Coming in, we have Molly McCann versus Hannah Goldy. Molly McCann, a minus 390 favorite on this card, currently the highest favorite. Hannah Goldy, a plus 280 underdog. Jose, I'm very excited to see this women's flyweight fight. I think both of these girls are really competitive, and to each of their own. At this point, I think they're both have established with decent wins. I mean, Hannah Goldy having beating Emily Whitmire via armbar after coming off a couple losses to keep her UFC career alive, and Molly McCann coming off a couple wins after losing to Tyler Santos and Laura Prosapio. So this is going to be interesting. A lot of their fights go to decision, so I'm not sure we're going to see anything flashy, huge knockouts, although McCann has gotten a pretty flashy knockout against Luana Carolina. So you never know what could happen here. But in the end, Molly McCann being the biggest favorite on this card is very interesting, Jose.
Yeah, Nick, I agree. I think part of that is due to that crazy knockout she's just coming off of, her most recent back in March against Lana Carolina. That spinning KO was just crazy. So I think that's kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to show the power that she brings with her. And not only that, I mean, Hannah Goldy, she won her, obviously, the Dana White Contender Series to get into the UFC, but her first two fights in the UFC did not go her way. And then her last fight against Emily Whitmore, that submission was cool, but that being said, like, I don't know how to really think of this fight. Like you said, they both do go to decision a lot, and I think Molly McMahon, she may have a little bit more experience, at least in the UFC, and I think that carries a little more weight. So having more wins in the UFC, to me, carries quite a bit, and that power, she's already showed she has that power. So I wouldn't be surprised to expect her to want to come out and have a repeat performance in front of her home crowd again. So, and I'm sure Hannah Goldy is expecting that. She's going to be probably looking to counter any type of power punches that are coming from Molly, and she's probably gonna have to control it on the ground and coast her way to unanimous decision. Will she tap out Molly McMahon? I'm not sure. I don't think Molly has she only has one loss by submission. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think Hannah will get the submission on this one. I think since that last fight, I've kind of Molly's kind of opened my eyes to show the power that she has. So I'm excited to kind of see like what kind of run she's puts on for her division next.
Yeah, without a doubt, Jose. I would expect most of this fight to play out on the feet. I think both of these fighters with a very high strikes landed per minute, with both being over 5.8 and both also being under 5 strikes absorbed per minute, which I think is pretty impressive. Neither of them have even one takedown average per 15-minute fight. So, or excuse me, Molly McCann does have 1.7 takedown average. So she may try, and that's the point I was going to try and make, is that she may try to take down Hannah Goldy. But what's fascinating is the submission that she got against Emily Whitmire came from an Emily Whitmire takedown. So Hannah Goldy may not be that afraid of going to the ground, and we'll see if Molly McCann decides to make the decision to take her down. I think it might depend on if she gets bombarded with strikes, but regardless, I think Molly McCann is the better striker here, and I think she has better experience in the UFC as well. It is tough to take her in confidently with that big of a favorite difference, because I really think this is being a closer fight than the favorite show and the odd show. But in the end, I would still pick Molly McCann to win this fight.
Yeah, Nick, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. I'm gonna have to go with Molly McMahon, and I'm gonna have to go via TKO. I think it may be ended within the first 2.5 rounds. So I'm gonna go Molly McMahon via TKO/KO. And that brings us to our next fight of the night. It is a light heavyweight bout between Alexander Gustafsson versus Nikita Krylov. Right now, Alexander Gustafsson is the betting underdog at plus 164, while Nikita Krylov is the betting favorite at minus 215. Alexander Gustafsson is making his return to light heavyweight, where I think he truly belongs. He's coming off a loss to Fabricio Werdum, who's the former light heavyweight champ, and just as big of a guy as him, and he's been doing it naturally at heavyweight for longer than Gustafsson. And then he had a canceled bout, both between Paul Craig, which I think he probably would have won that fight, and another one against Ben Rothwell at heavyweight. Both fights got canceled, so now he's meeting up with Nikita Krylov, who he himself is coming off a couple of losses. One first round submission to Paul Craig, one that where he was looking actually pretty impressive in early in the first round, and another one to decision loss to Maganov Anklov. This is an exciting fight. I think both match up very well. I think this is going to be a challenge for Gustafsson, making his return to the light heavyweight division. Nick, what are your thoughts on this?
Without a doubt, this is a really good matchmaking decision here. It'll be 2 years almost to the day from Gustafsson's last fight in the UFC against Fabricio Werdum. And obviously, he took that loss in heavyweight, but I agree. He does belong in light heavyweight. And it's not an easy fight, but I think he does have the abilities and the tools necessary to beat Nikita Krylov. I think Krylov has definitely a grappling and submission threat, but it can't be that impressive if he gets submitted by Paul Craig in the first round. Obviously, Magomed Ankalaev, it's pretty understood that he won that decision because of the 3 takedowns on Krylov and the domination in that side of this fight. And I just don't think he's going to be able to dominate Gustafsson in such a way. Obviously, Gustafsson was subbed by the heavyweight Werdum, but I don't think it's going to play out in the same way with Krylov. Gustafsson is sporting an 83% takedown defense in the UFC fights. And, he has a pretty decided, solid ground game of his own. And I think he has an advantage striking. So this will be interesting to see Gustafsson coming off of an almost 2-year hiatus, like I mentioned. And obviously being the underdog here, I don't know. I think I have pretty high confidence in him here.
Yeah, Nick, I agree. It's pretty crazy to see that he's the underdog coming into this one. I think a lot of people should not forget that his last 2 wins in the UFC actually come to the 2 most recent light heavyweight champs before Yuri, as in Glover Teixeira and Jan Blachowicz. He defeated those 2 guys, while Nikita Krylov actually lost to both of them. And so Gustafsson, he's one of those titans, of the light heavyweight division, where when you're going against him, like this is the next step, like you're really, gonna start being thrown in title contention picture. And like he's been gone, but again, Gustafsson can easily put himself back in the picture with a couple of wins in the light heavyweight division. And Gustafsson, not only that, he's shown he has great boxing skills and he has takedown skills as well, and he has a slight two reach inch advantage over Nikita Krylov. I think Nikita Krylov is one of those people who he loses to those I guess to say those titans of the UFC. He beats the guys that he's supposed to be, but he's definitely losing to some of those bigger names there. And I think Gustafsson's going to come in and show people, remind everyone who he is and why he was at the top of the division for so long.
Without a doubt, Jose. So honestly, yeah, it sounds like potentially then we both agree on the underdog here again. So far, 2 underdogs of the first 3 fights, but honestly, very confident in these decisions. I think Gustafsson is going to win this fight, and I'm not quite too confident on betting by submission or knockout or anything, but for sure taking the underdog on this one. Coming up next, we have a lightweight bout with Paddy the Baddy Pimblett coming in as a minus 280 favorite against Jordan Leavitt, the Monkey King. This guy likes grappling, and he likes it a lot. Plus 210 underdog. Jose, this is one that a lot of people have been waiting a long time for, seeing Paddy come back in the ring. He's somebody that people love to see, especially live. He puts on a show, and so far, both of his UFC fights have concluded in the first round. Will he be able to continue an insane streak of just dominating all his opponents, whether it's in Cage Warriors or the UFC, or will a 10-1 warrior who continues to dominate people on the ground and win with submissions like inverted triangles be able to stop Paddy's run? I think this is going to be wild to see, Jose.
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you. I think on paper, a lot of people believe that this is going to be Paddy Pimblett's biggest test in the UFC thus far. That being said, yeah, Paddy is, I think, the bigger guy coming into this. I mean, obviously, we know all the weight he put on, and now he's cutting that. But I think that being said, he's going to come in naturally the bigger guy, while Jordan Leavitt is going to be. He kind of walks around. I'm pretty sure. I saw an interview and they asked him what he walks around, and he walks like within like a 10-pound radius of the 170. So of the 170 weight pound limit. So I think Paddy's probably gonna come in with just more natural power. Paddy overall, both are finishers for sure, and I think Paddy is going to press forward and just try to get some exciting KO over Jordan Leavitt. But that being said, I think Jordan Leavitt is expecting Paddy to be wild, being in his home country again. I know he's going to be expecting a show from Paddy. And I think that if he can stay to his game and not let any of the head games get to him, he could slither his way into a submission victory. And even then, I think he's smart enough to push the fight all 3 rounds. He is coming off a decision win against Trey Ogden. So that just shows me that he does have the ability to drag the fight out. But that also being said, I just realized that he I'm at 155 too. I said 170. I'm at the 155 weight class. But that being said, Paddy they're both finishers, and I just expect this fight to be nothing but fireworks, Nick.
Yeah, with Paddy the Baddy always comes fireworks without a doubt. I was initially honestly leaning Jordan Leavitt on this fight. I thought, this is going to be one of the hardest tests Paddy Pimblett's ever seen in his career. Being 10-1 in MMA is a big deal. This isn't like boxing where you can come in and kind of pad your stats. I think being 10-1 really proves that he could be a top echelon fighter in a few years, because Jordan Leavitt's pretty young. Yeah, obviously, so is Paddy Pimblett. Both of these guys are young and up and coming guys. So I think this really will be a long fight. To me, there's no chance it ends in the first round. I think both of these guys are going to have to respect each other to some degree. And, in the end, after looking into it a little bit and seeing some of the footage and seeing some of the stats, I don't know, Jose. I think I got to go with Paddy dependent on his weigh-ins. I think Paddy just displays so much better of a striking ability over Jordan Leavitt. Jordan Leavitt's main ability and main strength seems to be grappling and ground game, but I don't think Paddy minds if it goes to that point. Paddy actually averages more submission attempts than Jordan Leavitt does on an average per 15-minute fight, and they have a similar takedown averages. And I just, in this case, I don't think either guy cares if it goes to the ground, but Paddy knows that he's going to have that standing advantage. I think he's going to use it. But I'm not going to put any money on him until I see him weigh in and look like he's in beautiful shape, just because of all the weight he seemed to put on. I just don't think that's going to be a habit he can continue, especially as we get older, our metabolism slow down, and he's going to be having to keep up with some of the best in the division. And those guys are staying in the tip-top shape 12 months a year.
Yeah, Nick, I most certainly agree with you. This is not something that Paddy can keep doing moving forward, especially if he expects to be fighting fighters in the top 10 of the UFC. It's not sustainable for his career. That being said, though, if he does come in, which I'm hoping he does come in top tip shape, because we'd want to see the best of both guys in their prime. We want to see the best both in shape. And I think Paddy, if he's in shape, he's definitely going to be the bigger, stronger guy going into this. And he does have a 2-inch reach advantage over Jordan Leavitt. So I do expect that he's going to use his size to an advantage to set him up for some power punches. I think Jordan Leavitt may be smart enough to drag the fight out. So this could be a fight that may not get finished. But that being said, something I also have for Paddy over Jordan Leavitt is that Paddy does have 10 more professional fights than Jordan Leavitt. So because of that, I'm gonna take just the bigger guy with more professional MMA fights for this one, which is the favorite Paddy the Baddy. So you have that there. Both Nick and I have Paddy Pimblett for this one. And like Nick, I don't know how this fight would end. I can see Paddy actually knocking out Jordan Leavitt. It'd be interesting to see him get that submission win. Or I can definitely see Jordan Leavitt being smart enough to at least try to get a decision victory win if he can't finish Paddy the Baddy within the 3 rounds. So for this fight, yeah, I have Paddy Pimblett as well. And for the next fight of the night, we have a middleweight bout between Jack Hermansson versus last-minute replacement Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis right now stepping in for Darren Till. Right now, the odds have Jack Hermansson at minus 106, while Chris Curtis is at minus 120. Right now, Chris Curtis is the betting favorite, him stepping in. And I think that's just because the impression he's made coming into the UFC, Nick. You know, this is the guy that we're just looking into, who was on Dana White's Contender Series at one point. Did not get a shot into the UFC, but he went to the PFL, and then later the UFC called, and now he's on a 3-fight win streak. His first 2 fights came via first and second round KO/TKO, and he's coming off a decision win to Rodolfo Vera last month, June of 25th, in the UFC Fight Night. This is exciting, Nick, because Jack Hermansson, this guy himself, he's had kind of some win-losses right now in the UFC. He's coming off a loss to Sean Strickland that went to the final decision. And before that, he had a win over Edmund Shabazian, young up-and-coming guy. And before that, he again had a loss. So Jack Hermansson right now is just kind of looking to actually start his UFC fight streak within the division, so he can remain within the top 10. Because he's not really racked up anything to kind of push him towards that title shot anytime soon, Nick.
Yeah, for sure, Jose. Chris Curtis is quickly becoming one of my favorite fighters, being a guy who's just willing to come in and take a fight. He fought last month. He fought in December. I mean, this guy's fighting a lot of fights, and he's just taking what he can get and dominating everyone he comes up against, which I can totally respect. Jack Hermansson has been a little more inactive, having 1 fight per year since 2020, and he's kind of been on and off, but those all fights are those going to decision. I really do think action man Chris Curtis has the standing advantage here, and so far he hasn't been taken down once in the UFC. He hasn't necessarily fought anyone that's regarded as like an extremely top end grappler, but I don't think that's what Hermansson is by any means. And even guys like Rodolfo Vieira tried taking down Chris Curtis 20 times and failed every single time. So I think Chris Curtis knows how to defend a takedown, keep this fight on the ground where he's in the advantage situation. And I think he's just going to dice it up with Jack Hermansson here. And I honestly would anticipate this fight to go to decision, to be honest. It's not easy to put out a guy like Jack Hermansson. So, I really think in this case, I mean, it's not like Jack Hermansson's never been KO'd, but in this case, I do think it would go to decision. So I am leaning Chris Curtis. It's fascinating to see the odds for a guy that fought last month and is a late end replacement being a slight favorite here, Jose.
Yeah, Nick, I like that pick. Yeah, Chris Curtis, even though he's not been in the UFC as long, he does have 8 more professional MMA fights over Jack Hermansson. So that's something I definitely take a value as well. So I can see why. I just think that hot streak he's just been on, that is recency bias, is definitely why he's the favorite in this one. Jack Hermansson, um, yeah, I can see him like this fight. If this fight was a 5 round fight, I can actually kind of see it going in Jack Hermansson's favor just because he's been in those scenarios more than Chris Curtis. But since it's a 3 round fight, Chris Curtis has shown that he can go the distance, and I feel confident enough in him with going the distance in 3 rounds. So, and he's shown that he has power. They're both the same age, and Chris Curtis is actually the one with more MMA fights on his record. So that being said, yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on this. I'm actually gonna go with the betting favorite on this. Chris Curtis, like you, Nick.
And for the main event of UFC Fight Night in the O2 Arena, we've got Tom Aspinall on home field playing or fighting specifically against Curtis Blaydes. Tom Aspinall being the minus 136 favorite, Curtis Blaydes the plus 108 underdog. Jose, this fight is so exciting for the heavyweight division. Both of these guys are trying to climb their way to the top to fight for the next title belt. But that being said, I think these guys really need wins here, and it's going to be fascinating to see their styles clash. I think both of them have talents, standing and specifically on the ground. Both of these guys love taking people down and dominating them on the ground, and I'm so fascinated to see how that's going to match up against each other and who truly has the ability to dominate the other on the ground.
Yeah, Nick, I agree. I'm excited to see Tom Aspinall fight in his home country against Curtis Blaydes. Tom Aspinall, I can see him being the slight favorite due to his youth and the impressive streak he's been putting on. That he is a high volume striker. But that being said, Curtis Blaydes, he has had more experience going against the top guys within the UFC. He's come and toward his career, he was kind of up and down. Like, where does he fall in? He's lost to Francis Ngannou twice, and he got knocked out by Derek Lewis. But other than that, I mean, he's a pretty well-rounded fighter overall. Prior, he was known mostly for being a strong wrestler and one of the best wrestlers in the heavyweight division. But he's shown that he can rack up wins, whether it's by knockout, and even getting some decision wins as well. His experience and within the UFC kind of surprises me. That is not why he's actually the betting favorite in this. You figure that he would have been the favorite just because he's been in the top 10 longer than Tom Aspinall. And Tom Aspinall is just kind of getting started. But I mean, Curtis Blaydes has an impressive win against Jairzinho Rosenstrike that went to decision. So because of that, that's something I hold a lot of value to as well, in terms of like Curtis Blaydes can go against high level strikers and make it a decision if he needs to. What he really needs to look for is just not be set up for a knockout punch. Tom Aspinall, he has an impressive 100% finish rate, and he does have 8 knockouts on his record. So he can definitely set Curtis Blaydes up to be knocked out with throwing a barrage of punches at him. Chris Curtis is going to have to be extremely smart and technical and have a strong takedown game. Tom Aspinall does have a strong defense, but Curtis Blaydes in this fight is going to have to impose his will, because he's kind of stuck in a weird situation where he's beating really good guys that are in the top 10, even in the top 5. But then he sometimes loses to guys that, it's almost like, whoa, like no one saw that coming. Like, you shouldn't have lost to him, like, made for this, even though he's the underdog. This is definitely not a fight that I think he should lose. I'm kind of surprised he's not the favorite himself, but Espinal is on an impressive win streak. Andrei Arlovsky, Alexander Volkov, and Sergey Spivak, big names, but again, I think the names that Curtis Blaydes has been are bigger and hold more value to me. So for this fight, I'm actually going to go with the underdog, Curtis Blaydes, getting the win. And I'll just say he'll probably drag it out all 5 rounds and win via unanimous decision. I think Curtis Blaydes' experience and fight IQ is enough for him to know to do the right thing and not fall victim to being knocked out or submitted by Tom Aspinall. So for this fight, I'm going to go Curtis Blaydes.
Fair enough, Jose. I can totally see where you're coming from. I'm a big fan of Curtis Blaydes. He's coming from Illinois, and that's a familiar place for me. But in the end, I really just think Tom Aspinall's the better fighter here. I think he is going to set up Curtis Blaydes, and I think he's going to finish this fight within 3 rounds. Give me Aspinall under 2.5 rounds. I think this is going to be an exciting fight with an exciting finish. I might even say by submission. And for the betting portion of Money Lion MMA UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Aspinall, coming to you on July 23rd in London, England. This one's going to be a daytime fight in the United States, starting with the prelims at 10 a.m. So be prepared to have an afternoon of drinking and watching the fights. That being said, it's time to get into the betting. After we remind you to follow us on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube and give us a comment down below to let us know what bets that you're going to be placing this weekend. We're excited to hear how much money you guys have been making off the bets that we're giving on a weekly basis. That being said, our first bet of the week is going to be Paul Craig by submission. He's going to come in here as the underdog and absolutely dominate Oezdemir and get that submission. The second bet of the week is going to be Molly McCann by decision. She's going to come in here and get the unanimous decision win over Hannah Goldy. I think she just has superior experience and ability to win in the striking game. That being said, Jose and I's lock of the week is going to be Paddy Pimblett, a guy that we both were a little bit hesitant on, but now pending the performance on the scale come this weekend, he will be the lock of the week. The underdog of the week is going to be Alexander Gustafsson. This man is to be feared in the light heavyweight division, and he's going to come in here and show Nikita Krylov who is boss. Finally, we've got the parlays coming in, starting with the low-level 3-leg parlay, the one with the highest odds, at least in terms of chance to win and hit home with this bet. We're going to go with Molly McCann plus Paddy Pimblett plus Chris Curtis, the late replacement. Those 3 will come in and dominate their fights and win you plus 212 odds. If you want to get a little bit more risky, go ahead and add our underdog of the week, Alexander Gustafsson, in that 4-leg parlay will get you plus 725 odds, already making a massive jump up by adding in one underdog in that situation. And from here, you're welcome to take your pick of the main event. Obviously, Jose and I disagreed, so you can put Aspinall in there and you can get plus 1,332 odds. Or if you put the underdog Curtis Blaydes, you'll get 16-16, which is massive return. But in any case, I might suggest instead to go with the main card opener, a fight that Jose and I both agree will finish with Paul Craig winning. We have that bet being a lock in terms of Paul Craig winning by submission. So add it in there to your 5-leg parlay and make that a plus 1,748 return on your bet. That finishes the betting portion for this week. We will be back at it again next week as usual. And again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for listening and have a good week.